Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the video. Today I wanted to go over some abandoned amusement parks. It's always so interesting to look at the stories behind the current state of some of these amusement parks that have completely gone abandoned and what those amusement parks have left behind. Beginning with Six Flags New Orleans, which originally opened in the year 2000, not as a Six Flags. It was called Jazzland, but it rebranded in April of 2003, reopening under the Six Flags name, and it only lasted for a little over 2 years, officially closing on August 21st of 2005, but it wasn't because of poor park attendance, it was because of Hurricane Katrina. They closed because of Katrina, and they never reopened. It really is an interesting story. In the early 2000s, Six Flags spent $20 million to upgrade the original park and decided on a reopening date of April 2003. Under the name Six Flags New Orleans, Six Flags added more shaded areas and many new flat spinning rides. The park was renamed Six Flags. The last day the park operated was Sunday, August 21st, 2005, 8 days before Hurricane Katrina struck New Orleans. Weekday operations had ended a couple weeks earlier. However, as schools started early in August in the New Orleans area and ended in mid-May, the park was scheduled to reopen for the weekend on August 27th or 28th, but once Katrina was forecast on late Friday, August 26th, to directly hit New Orleans, the weekend reopening was canceled in order to prepare for the storm and begin evacuations. By the time the park had closed in 2005, Six Flags had spent $44 million on park upgrades. So they lost significant money on this, just in terms of it only being open for 2 years, and considering Hurricane Katrina hitting it, if you look at its location, it is in a horrible, horrible spot. It is right next to a lake, and it flooded extremely easily just based off of its location. As you can see, some different maps of it. It did have some pretty impressive roller coasters. And due to its location directly next to a lake, the park installed drainage pipes to protect it from flooding. On the morning of August 29th, 2005, just after sunrise, Hurricane Katrina made landfall in southeast Louisiana. Water from the lake overflowed and overwhelmed the drainage system that had been installed at Six Flags New Orleans, which was unable to keep up with the flow of water, flooding the theme park. In the storm's aftermath, the park was submerged in 6 feet deep of water, taking over a month for the water to leave the park and leaving devastation in its wake. Initial damage reports by Six Flags inspectors stated that the park buildings, the flat rides, and attractions were 80% destroyed by long-term saltwater immersion, and wooden track and steel superstructure were likely damaged beyond repair. The only large ride to escape relatively unscathed was the Batman ride, the roller coaster, due to its elevated station platform, and they ended up moving that out of the park and to another Six Flags park. In July of 2006, it had been announced that the park would be closed for at least another year. But in 2007, Six Flags, after assessing the damage, had concluded the park was effectively a total loss, and they had no desire or intent to undertake a renovation or rehabilitation of the park. There have been several ideas to potentially renovate the entire area, including a Jazzland outlet mall. You can see a little rendering for that. That fell on deaf ears. The park area has also been used for different film locations, but as you can see, it is in a complete state of abandonment. So that is the story of Six Flags New Orleans, destroyed by Hurricane Katrina just 2 years after the rebrand, and they were only able to salvage one ride, the Batman, which was a roller coaster located on the far left end of the park. The next one we're looking at, it is Discovery Island, which originally opened back in April of 1974 and closed the exact same date it opened, of April in 1999, covering about 11.5 acres. The island originally opened as Treasure Island, a place to observe wildlife, and was later renamed Discovery Island as they had many different zoo-type exhibits to the area. So this was more of a zoo-type little island more than anything, and it did close in 1999, at which point all of its animals had been relocated to Disney's Animal Kingdom and other zoos. Although Disney never officially stated its reason for closing the park, poor attendance and high maintenance costs combined with the newer and bigger Disney's Animal Kingdom being opened a year before are the most likely causes. And it does seem like it would take significant money to upkeep this island, considering it is just an island. There's a lot that goes into it in terms of cost. Going out to the island, coming back, it's not really attached to the mainland. Since its closing, the island has sat largely abandoned with no signs of development. As of 2022, all the original buildings and attractions remain on the island, though several have sustained major damage from hurricanes and natural decay. I'll tell you what, going to this island at night, it would be pretty freaky, man. That would be a cool video, but yeah, basically it's just a bunch of buildings. There's really no big rides or anything like that. This was more of a place to see animals, see wildlife, and all of the inner buildings and smaller attractions in terms of rides have went abandoned, but it's not a total loss like Six Flags New Orleans, considering the scale of it was a lot smaller than a massive amusement park like that. And then the final one we're going to be taking a look at, it is Ghost Town in the Sky, which originally opened 62 years ago in 1961 and was closed in 2016, although that is disputed based off of several different problems that they've had in terms of it closing, then trying to reopen, then closing, then trying to reopen, but it was officially closed in 2016, and it did have an average attendance every year of around 500,000. When the park originally opened in 1961, it quickly became one of Western North Carolina's most popular tourist attractions. It showcased a double incline railway to bring park visitors to the top of Buck Mountain, a journey of more than 3,000 feet. And that's super unique about going to a park. You immediately get onto almost looks like a chairlift to get to the actual park. That kind of goes along with its name, Ghost Town in the Sky. A super unique idea. You get out of your car and you go on a chairlift and you go up to the thing. I like that idea. The park did add a 2-seat chairlift, which at the time was the longest in North Carolina and the second longest in the USA. Let me tell you something about those 2-seat chairlifts. Those things are tiny, man. You get on one of those things, I don't know, maybe it was a little bit bigger, but that's a risky thing to get on. I remember when I used to ski getting on those things. But from the 1960s to the 1980s, it did enjoy a lot of success, at one point attracting over 620,000 visitors and around 500,000 average per year. The park was sold in 1973, and in 1982, it hosted several performers for the World Fair in Knoxville, Tennessee. It did, however, experience a decline in the 1980s, and it was later closed due in part to mismanagement along with a lack of maintenance. Also, on July 16th of 2002, the chairlift stopped, stranding passengers for over 2 hours, with fewer people visiting Ghost Town because of the bad condition of the park. The park was closed for a few days after the chairlift failure and put up for sale. The park remained closed and unmaintained for the next 4 years, leading many to believe that nobody would buy the park because of the bad condition. However, in 2006, it was sold to Ghost Town Partners LLC and reopened in 2007 after $38 million was spent on renovations and improvements. That didn't last, however, as unfortunately it was closed a few years later due to poor attendance, among other things. Now, this was an amusement park that did have several different roller coasters. You can see the big one that normally gets photographed along with the chairlift that would bring people to the top of it, kind of the bottom area there as well. All of that is abandoned. This park has gone through several different ideas of trying to do some type of reopening. I gotta be honest, it is a really cool idea. I think it could work. It just depends on the population density of the area in North Carolina, considering it does look to be located in a secluded spot. Again, the idea is really cool of parking your car at the bottom, going up on a chairlift, and entering kind of a secluded park in and of itself on top of, a hill surrounded by a bunch of trees. But unfortunately, it does sit to this day still abandoned, even after the reopening attempt in 2007. But guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.